You know that feeling, that knot in your stomach.
Oh,
Maybe a big medical bill is coming, or the roof suddenly needs fixing.
oh yeah,
And then you think about the insurance claim. It just feels like this whole process designed to, I don't know, test your limits.
totally. It can be really frustrating.
But what if? What if you could kind of peek behind the curtain, understand things before you even file that claim? That's what we're digging into today, the world of pre-claims.
Exactly. And it's really interesting because it's about shifting your whole mindset, isn't it? From being reactive, like bracing for bad news,
Right.
to being proactive, getting clarity, maybe even getting the green light beforehand. And you'll see it's not just one thing. It pops up in, well, in quite a few important areas.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we've pulled together some really varied sources. We've got TikTok posts using the Thai hashtag two.
Yeah, those give a great real-world feel for health insurance pre-claims.
Definitely. Then there's a more formal look at why claims get denied. That's from the Journal of AKMA.
The American Health Information Management Association. Good stuff there.
We've also got insights from Inspector Pro Insurance. That's about home inspectors and pre-claims help. And Investopedia explaining pre-qualification versus pre-approval in finance.
Which can get confusing, so that's helpful.
Yeah. Plus, info from CMS on prior authorization in Medicare. Details on pre-approved home loans from IFL Home Loans. A definition of pre-authorization from BitWallet. Oh, and Trung Thai AXA Life Insurance, talking about their specific pre-approval program.
Wow, quite the mix.
It is. So our mission today is pretty clear. Figure out what pre-claims actually are, how they work differently in these fields, what the upsides are, and, any potential downsides too. We want to help you navigate all this more effectively.
Okay, so let's start broad. What is a pre-claim, generally speaking? Looking across all these sources, the common idea seems to be seeking some kind of advanced review, or maybe authorization.
Before the formal claim goes in.
Sure.
Or before you even get the service done.
Exactly. It's that before part that's key.
And those TikToks you mentioned under hashtag #TitanSansCode, they really show this in action for health insurance, right? People talking about checking with their insurer before, like, major surgery.
Yeah, like surgery for a herniated disc, that came up. They're basically trying to get a heads up on what's covered. No surprises, ideally.
It's interesting how that core idea echoes elsewhere, like that BitWallet definition you found.
Oh, right. Their definition of pre-authorization was about getting permission in advance to charge more than your credit card limit.
So different context, finance, not help, but still that idea of asking permission before you do something outside the normal limits.
Precisely. And just to make it super clear, let's contrast that with what a claim actually is. Inspector Pro Insurance keeps it simple. A written demand for money.
Okay.
So pre-claims, that's all the stuff happening before anyone puts that demand in writing.
Got it. So with that foundation, let's zoom in on health insurance. Seems like a big area for this. Based on the TikTok buzz, how does it usually work? Like based on those posts and the Trung Thai AXA info.
Sure. Well, one TikTok from Axicam laid out the Trung Thai AXA process pretty clearly. It starts with the doctor. They put together a summary of the treatment plan.
Okay, makes sense.
Then the hospital staff takes that and adds more detail, especially the costs, and sends that to the insurance company. So it's all about getting the information flowing early.
Sharing the plan up front.
Right. Then the insurance company gets this package and they evaluate it, the costs, the plan itself. And this is where, they might need more details.
They might come back with questions
Yeah.
about why a certain thing is needed, maybe.
Exactly. They need to make sure it aligns with the policy, that it's medically necessary according to their rule.
Standard procedure, I guess.
Pretty much. After they review it, and the TikTok suggested this usually happens within about 3 days, they tell the hospital the decision. And there are basically 3 ways it can go.
Okay.
Approved, simple enough, not approved, also clear, though maybe not what you want to hear. Or they issue something called a reserve payment notice.
Reserve payment. What does that actually mean for the patient? Sounds a bit ambiguous.
Yeah, according to the source, it often means the insurer needs to dig into the patient's history a bit more. Apparently, it's pretty common if it's your very first claim with them.
Ah, okay. Like a deeper check.
Seems like it. And interestingly, the TikTok user even suggested that if your procedure isn't super urgent and you get this reserve payment flag, maybe hold off, give them time to do that history check.
It's practical advice.
Yeah.
Let the wheels turn before you commit.
Right. And then finally, the hospital tells the patient what the insurance company decided.
Okay, that process makes sense. Now, what about the why? What are people on TikTok saying are the big advantages of doing this whole hashtag non-tat thing?
Well, a few key benefits really stand out. One is just knowing where you stand before the procedure. That hashtag Ganhana literally means know before claiming insurance. Clarity first.
Avoid sticker shock later.
Exactly. Another big one is avoiding having to pay a huge amount up front and then wait to get reimbursed. That's the hashtag ganadasarapatana. No need to advance payment.
Oh, that's huge, especially for expensive procedures.
Definitely. And maybe the biggest one overall, just peace of mind, knowing what's covered, what you might owe.
Yeah.
It reduces a ton of anxiety when you're already dealing with health stuff.
I can absolutely see that. Takes one major worry off the table. Now, you also mentioned Krung Thai AXA has a specific IPD Pre Approval program. How's that different? Or is it part of the same thing?
It seems like a more focused, maybe faster version of pre-claim, specifically for planned inpatient stuff. Think major surgeries, endoscopies, but only at hospitals they partner with.
Okay, so it's for specific situations.
Right. And the main goal seems to be speeding up discharge. Get the approval locked in beforehand so you're not stuck waiting for faxes and paperwork when you're ready to go home.
Streamline the checkout. Makes sense.
But, and this is important, it's not foolproof. They mentioned that if your treatment changes, or there are unexpected complications, or the final bill is higher than what was pre-approved,
Then you might end up back in the standard claim process anyway.
yeah, then the normal fax claim stuff might still kick in. So it helps, but it doesn't eliminate all potential claim hassles.
Good caveat. It manages expectations.
Yeah.
Okay, so this proactive approach sounds great, especially when you compare it to, well, the alternative. Dealing with claims after the fact, especially denials. That AHIMA article had some numbers on that, right?
It did, and they're pretty sobering, actually. They stated that almost 20%, 1 in 5 of all healthcare claims get denied on the first try.
Wow, 20%.
Yeah. And what's maybe worse is that they said up to 60% of those denied claims, they just never get resubmitted. People give up or providers write it off.
That's potentially a lot of money left on the table or bills that patients get stuck with unexpectedly. And the effort to fix a denial must cost something too.
Oh, absolutely. AHIMA estimated the cost to rework or appeal a denial is around $25 for a doctor's office, but jumps to like $181 for a hospital per denial.
Okay, so there's a real financial reason for everyone involved to avoid denials if possible.
Definitely. Which brings us right back to pre-claims. How can doing that upfront work help avoid those common denial reasons?
Well, one big reason AHIMA mentioned for denials is just lack of prior authorization.
Exactly. And pre-claim or pre-authorization directly tackles that. You're getting the authorization before the service happens. Problem solved, hopefully.
Makes sense. What else?
Well, another common reason for denial is disputes over medical necessity. Was the procedure really needed?
Right.
While pre-claim doesn't guarantee no disputes ever, submitting the plan and justification beforehand means the insurer sees it early. If they have questions about necessity, they can raise them then.
Instead of denying the claim weeks or months later.
Precisely. It's like an early warning system for potential disagreements.
That seems way more efficient. And you mentioned CMS, Medicare doing something similar. Prior authorization and pre-claim review.
Yeah, CMS uses these tools too. The goal is similar: make sure services are medically necessary and follow Medicare rules, mainly to cut down on improper payments.
Okay.
They do draw a slight distinction. Prior authorization is before the service. Pre-claim review is before the claim is submitted, but the service might have already happened.
Oh, subtle difference.
Yeah, but the key takeaway from CMS is that these checks are about ensuring rules are followed, not about changing the underlying medical standards or paperwork requirements.
Got it. So we're seeing this trend towards upfront checks in both private insurance and Medicare. Okay, let's switch gears completely. Home inspections. How does this pre-claim idea work there?
It's a bit different, yeah. Inspector Pro Insurance calls it pre-claims assistance, and it's less about approving a future action and more about, well, heading off trouble before it becomes a formal claim.
Trouble meaning an unhappy client.
Exactly. A client has a complaint about the inspection. Maybe they found an issue they think the inspector should have caught. Before they actually file a written demand for money, the claim the inspector can use this assistance.
Okay, so how does that work? What does the assistance actually involve?
Typically, the inspector calls their insurance broker, says, hey, I need pre-claims assistance. The broker connects them with the insurer's team. An adjuster then calls the inspector.
And they talk it through.
Yeah, they discuss the client's complaint, what the issue is, and the adjuster helps the inspector figure out how to respond. Often, they suggest using technical defenses.
Technical defenses, like what?
Things like pointing out that the issue wasn't visible during the inspection, or it was outside the agreed-upon standards of the inspection, or maybe it was actually mentioned in the report already.
Using the facts and the standards to address the complaint professionally.
Right. It's about providing a reasoned response based on the inspection itself, hopefully resolving the issue before the client feels the need to formally demand compensation.
That sounds incredibly useful for an inspector.
Yeah.
What are the benefits? For the inspector and I guess for the insurance company too.
For the inspector, the biggest win is potentially stopping a claim dead in its tracks. Because even if a claim doesn't result in a payout, just having claims filed can make your insurance rates go up later.
Right. Your claims history matters.
Exactly. And Inspector Pro even mentioned that sometimes if you use pre-claims assistance and it still becomes a claim later, they might waive your deductible.
Oh, that's a nice bonus.
Definitely. And for the insurance company, it's risk management. Helping resolve issues early is usually way cheaper than handling a full-blown, potentially litigated claim down the line.
Makes perfect sense. Proactive problem solving saves money and hassle for everyone. Okay, now let's touch on those related financial terms.
Right.
Pre-qualification and pre-approval. Especially for mortgages. People might mix these up with pre-claims, right?
Yeah, it's easy to see why. Investopedia had a good breakdown. Pre-qualification, that's like step one. Very preliminary.
Based on what you tell the lender.
Pretty much. Self-reported income, debts. They give you a rough estimate of what you might borrow, usually no deep dive into your credit report, no hard inquiry.
So just a ballpark figure to get you started.
Exactly. Pre-approval, though, that's more serious. You actually fill out a mortgage application, they pull your credit report, a hard inquiry this time, they verify things.
And then they give you a conditional okay for a certain amount.
Right. It's a much stronger indicator that you'll likely get the loan, assuming nothing major changes and the property checks out.
And that pre-approval letter is what sellers want to see, isn't it? Shows you're a serious buyer.
Absolutely. It makes your offer much more competitive. And we saw from IFL Home Loans, talking about India specifically, that these pre-approvals usually have an expiration date.
Oh, yeah. How long do they typically last?
They mentioned usually 3 to 6 months, so you've got a window to find a house and get an offer accepted.
That's important to know. It's not indefinite. What if your pre-approval runs out before you find the right place?
IFL's advice was basically, you reapply, update your financial documents, maybe check if your credit score has improved, that could help. But yeah, you likely go through the process again with current info.
Okay, so these pre-processes, pre-claim, pre-approval, pre-qualification, pre-claims assistance, they all sound really beneficial. Are there any, downsides?
Yeah.
Or things people really need to keep in mind?
Yeah, nothing's perfect, right? In health insurance, that reserve payment thing we talked about.
The delay for a history check.
Right. While pre-claim is great for planned procedures, if you hit that reserve payment snag, it does mean a bit of a delay. Might not be ideal, even if the procedure isn't an emergency.
Sure.
And also, remember the Krung Thai AXA example. Even with pre-approval, if things change during treatment complications, different procedures needed, you could still end up dealing with the standard claims process after all.
So it reduces risk but doesn't eliminate it entirely. What about mortgages?
Well, pre-approval is great, but it's still not a 100% final guarantee. The lender still needs to do the final underwriting on the specific house, the appraisal, title search, all that.
Right, the property itself has to pass muster.
Exactly. And for the home inspectors using pre-claims assistance, it helps a lot, but it doesn't magically make every unhappy client disappear. Some might still decide to file a formal claim.
So it improves the odds, but it's not a silver bullet. Okay, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway? The big picture on pre-claims.
I think the core message is really about being proactive. Pre-claims in all these different shapes and sizes are fundamentally about looking ahead, understanding your situation before you commit, before you file, before potential problems arise.
Whether that's health coverage, resolving a client issue, or knowing your borrowing power.
Exactly. It's about shifting from reacting to surprises to actively seeking clarity up front.
And the payoff seems pretty clear. Fewer nasty surprises, potentially avoiding big upfront costs or denials.
And just generally having a better handle on things, which reduces stress.
Definitely. But we also saw the process isn't identical everywhere. Health insurance pre-approval is different from pre-claims assistance for an inspector, which is different from mortgage pre-qualification.
Absolutely. The specifics matter. The steps, the timelines, what actually gets reviewed, it varies a lot by sector. So you need to know the rules for the specific game you're playing, so to speak.
So what's the actionable advice for you listening right now? How can you use this?
I'd say be curious, be proactive. If you're planning any kind of major service or expense where insurance or financing is involved, just ask.
Ask the provider. Ask the insurer.
Yeah. Ask them, is there a pre-claim or pre-approval process available for this? Find out what it involves. Taking that step could genuinely save you a lot of hassle later on.
That's solid advice. Just ask the question. And that brings us to our final thought for you to chew on. In this world that often feels, well, really complex, how can taking these proactive steps, like using pre-claim processes, give you more confidence, maybe even more control, something to think about?